Hi all, I'm Margaret Home. I'm a board member with First Things First Okanagan. Most of you know us. We're a nonprofit volunteer climate organization. I'm joined by fellow board members Lori Goldman. She's manning the Zoom controls, and she'll be putting together the video to send you and information that we cover tonight. You'll be getting something from her tomorrow morning. And Sue Kirschman, who will be introducing tonight's speaker. Deep Dive is a monthly online webinar. We explore different perspectives on climate solutions for our communities. And Sue and Lori and I were just talking about what we were doing over the next few months. We're always looking for new ideas. So if you have an idea of a presentation, someone you'd like to hear from, pop that in the chat too. So we really appreciate that. First things first, Okanagan, we come to you from the traditional unceded territory of the Syilx and the Similkameen nations. And for those of us that are living in the South Okanagan, the Anaukin Center is a very inspiring community education resource that we have here. It's governed by the Alliance of Okanagan Nations. Inauken has a particular program that they're highlighting now. It's called the National Indigenous Professional Artist Training Program. And for the next 3 weeks, if you live in the South Okanagan, you're invited to visit the Timihu exhibit. It's a visual and literary arts exhibition. It's free of charge. And I encourage you to take the opportunity to visit the visually stunning building off of Green Mountain Road and experience the work of a new generation of Indigenous artists and writers. So it's on for the next 3 weeks, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And now I'll turn things over to Sue Kirschman to introduce tonight's speaker.
Thanks, Margaret. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Thanks for joining us. As you probably heard, the federal government will again be offering grants for new EVs, $5,000 for full EVs and $2,500 for plug-in models. And the selection will also be increasing with Canada now allowing the import of some new models from China. This has led to kind of a renewed interest in electric vehicles. So we were very happy when Ron said he was available to present at this deep dive, and we appreciate him sharing his expertise with us. Ron Groves is a co-founder of Plug and Drive, which is a not-for-profit organization that started in 2011 to accelerate electric vehicle adoption in Canada. Plug and Drive's mission is to maximize the environmental and economic benefits of electric transportation and to support Canada's goal of 100% EV sales by 2035. As Margaret mentioned, if you think of any questions while Ron is talking, just type them into the chat and we'll ask him them afterwards. And just the only other thing is if you could make sure your audio's turned off to prevent any background noise. And I think that's it. I'll turn it over to you now, Ron.
Thank you very much, Margaret. I appreciate that. And I'm just going to go ahead now and share my presentation. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see that okay. And welcome. Thank you all. Welcome to the EV Curious. But I believe that there are many people on the call tonight who are actually EV owners already. And so I hope we won't bore you too much, but it is EV 101. And so I'm going to touch on many of the various myths and try and dispel some of the misinformation that's out there. But I also hope that, you know, I answer the one main question that's probably in your mind if you're not an EV owner already, and that is an EV going to work for me? And we may not get it totally resolved tonight, but I'm hoping we get you well down the path to doing just that. As we like to say at Plug and Drive, EVs are for everyone. All right, so what are we going to take a look at tonight? And it's a big, pithy topic. I mean, there's lots to go over, and I'm going to dive in on a couple of things because they're sort of topical right now. But here's basically what we're going to take a look at in the next 40 minutes. And then I hope we leave enough time for all of you to ask some questions. And by the way, thank you very much to all of those who submitted questions already. I did print them out. And with any kind of luck, I'll try and weave some of the answers to your questions into my presentation. We'll see how that goes. And if not, we'll try and pick it up at the end as well. All right. So who the heck is Plug and Drive and where did we come from? And and so in this picture that you see here, the person behind the podium, her name is Kara Claremont. And she is our current president and CEO, but she's also the brainchild of our organization. We started 15 years ago. We are actually celebrating our 15th anniversary this year. And back in Ontario 15 years ago, there weren't very many EVs, as you can imagine. There was the Tesla Roadster. We had coming soon was the Nissan Leaf, the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, even the Chevy Volt. But what we did have in Ontario is a nuclear generation fleet. And what I mean by that is nuclear power. And the thing about nukes is you can't turn them down. The suckers run flat out all the time. And so at night, when we all go to bed and industry shuts down and we shut off the dryer and the microwave, we have all this extra power. And you know what we did with it? We spilled it over the border into the States. Very often we gave it to them. Sometimes we actually paid them to take it because we can't shut the nukes off. And when you generate the power, it's got to go somewhere. It was just crazy. And so Kara's idea was, well, this EV thing looks like it's coming. It's on the horizon. If we could increase adoption, if we could encourage adoption to happen quicker, then maybe we could bring these EVs on board and they could use some of that extra power that we generate domestically right in Canada. And of course, where does our car sit most of the time? In our driveway. When? At night. And that is when we had this extra electricity generation going on, especially in Ontario, but it actually happens right across Canada as well. And so if those cars sitting in our driveway were EVs and we plugged them in, we wouldn't have to send the electricity to the States. We could keep it for ourselves and use it for transportation. What an awesome idea. Anyway, it was pretty radical in the day, but here we are 15 years later, and EVs have become a thing. Plug and Drive does more than just education. We also do a lot of research and we do a lot of partnering with government, both municipal, federal, and provincial, to help them make decisions about EV adoption in Canada. We did a wonderful white paper actually, and it's available free on our website with regards to putting electric vehicle chargers into MURBs, M-U-R-B, multiple unit residential buildings, or condos and apartments. It's a free download, and we just updated it recently, and it's a big issue across Canada. If you can't charge at home, your home being an apartment or a condo, then you're not taking advantage of one of the best benefits of owning an EV. So that is who Plug and Drive is, and this is what we look like. We have two electric vehicle discovery centers in Toronto, and we also do roadshow events. You can see the tent and the table. But that's great if you're in Ontario or Greater Toronto area. But what about the rest of the country? And so we built two mobile EV education trailers, and we take them across the country. We have one in the west and one in the east. And spring, summer, fall, we take them across the country and to various communities and staff them with local EV owners. And we have EVs available, brand new EVs available to test drive. And so you can come out to these events and test drive an EV and ask questions and hopefully get them all answered in a nice, warm, friendly environment that is not a high pressure sales environment like a dealer or something like that. It is simply a place to come and learn. And that has been how Plug and Drive has worked for the last 15 years. We are sponsored, of course, by many folks. We are set up as a nonprofit. I want to point out, you can see some of the power sector in there. You can see the manufacturers in there. They provide us with the cars plated and insured so that we can do this good work. Flow is an example of an EV charging infrastructure. They make both home and commercial chargers and run networks across Canada. But I want to point out one particular organization which we've just partnered with recently, and that is a brand new organization called NextDrive. And you can see it's powered by Napa. Napa, you've probably heard of. These are the auto parts people that are coast to coast in many communities across Canada, where you can go and buy parts for your car. They also do Napa Auto Pro service centers where you can have repairs done to your car. And they have started this brand new division called NextDrive. And their idea is to service EVs. And so they are going to take some of their Napa Auto Pro centers across Canada and train the technicians in them to be high voltage technicians. So they can work on the motors and the batteries and the power electronics. They'll have the parts available. And I think it's just a wonderful organization. It was really sort of an interesting, like, who was going to be first to do it? Would it be Canadian Tire that would do this? No, it was these guys. And it needs to happen because after your car is out of warranty, it still needs to be repaired. And so these guys are picking up that slack. I'll add one more little tidbit to that conversation. Chinese EVs are now apparently going to be allowed to come to Canada, but they can't come to Canada without having a service network. Sure, you can sell them online, but you need a place to deliver them, and ultimately you need somehow some way to service them. And so who might possibly do that? Ooh, NextDrive. Maybe they could. Wouldn't that be interesting? So when it comes time for those Chinese EVs to arrive in Canada, maybe somebody like NextDrive will pick up that service contract to provide the service that you would expect from any manufacturer so that you have the confidence that your car is going to be reliable and be repaired when required. So that's how we get it done. A little nod to the federal government of Canada. They do partially fund us here and there on various different projects, including our mobile EV education trailer, and which roams across the country. And I hope that you will come out and join us. And here's our Western Canada schedule. And so Plug and Drive is going to be in a variety of different places. There's nothing like being able to get out and put your bum in a seat and take one for a spin. So we're going to be at the Vancouver Auto Show. I know I'm speaking to people from BC and Alberta. We're also going to be hosting the Calgary International Auto and Truck Show. We're going to have over 30 EVs that you can test drive in Calgary at the auto show over those 4 days. It's an outdoor test track. It's fantastic. The Vancouver show will be similar, a great experience. And then our meet will be traveling throughout BC and Alberta. So keep an eye on our website for dates and times and locations near you. And we hope to see you out there on the road. All right, so let's dive in now to, is this a good thing? Like, are we really doing something good when we switch from a fossil fuel powered vehicle to an EV? And there's been many arguments against, of course. And one of the biggest ones, of course, is, well, you're just switching where the pollution is. You're taking a tailpipe in a gasoline powered car and you're relocating it to a power plant someplace else. And nothing could be further from the truth here in Canada. So as you can see, 60% of the electricity that we generate in Canada comes from hydroelectricity. You folks in BC know that 98% or something of your electricity is hydro. Manitoba, Quebec, Newfoundland, Labrador, and even in Ontario, which is 60% nukes, it's about 30% hydro. And so it's a very clean story. When we plug into the Canadian grid with our EV, it's a very good, clean story. Even in the province where I live, Alberta, which is about 80, 85% natural gas, and layered in there is some wind and solar and some hydro too. It is still cleaner to plug in your EV to any of these grids in Canada. Nova Scotia is an example. New Brunswick, which still has some coal in the mix, believe it or not. It is still cleaner to plug your EV into our grid than driving a gasoline or diesel powered car. So it's a very good story. And oh, by the way, we're using Canadian generated electricity when we do that. When we buy gasoline, even though Alberta out here, we're an oil and gas province, we don't necessarily get all of our gasoline or our oil and gas or our oil from Canada. A lot of it comes from elsewhere in the world. So by buying an EV and plugging into the Canadian grid, you're keeping our jobs and our money and our dollars right here in the country. It's a very good story. Now, if you want to fix a problem, don't fix the little thing, fix the big thing. And so when we take a look at what is making the most pollution in the country, well, it's the oil and gas sector actually, and that's not even burning the product. That's just digging it up, refining it, and distributing it. It's the number one emitter in Canada. Okay, fine. What's number two? Well, number two is transportation. Now, that's a big thing. And to be fair, in that statistic is boats, aircraft, on-highway tractor trailer, trains. It's everything. And when you think about it, all those things basically run on fossil fuel. So if you want to fix a problem, then transportation is a good one to start with because it's a big emitter. And we know how to do it. We know how to electrify these sectors. Aircraft, okay, that's going to take a little bit of doing. That's a big, but it only accounts in the world for about 2 to 3% of global emissions in the aircraft sector, in the airline aerospace industry. But you and me driving around in our light duty cars and pickups, we account for a fair bit. And so we know how to build EVs, and we have done for a long time. Do you know that back in 1900, there were more electric vehicles driving around North America, specifically the US actually, than there were gas cars? The oil industry hadn't even begun. You got your gasoline at a pharmacy. And so already electricity was being distributed around cities and electric vehicles. In New York, they had a ton of electric taxi cabs. It's an interesting story as to why we're not all driving around in EVs now since then, and I won't get into it here. But it's not that it's an old thing. Or a new thing. It is an old thing. We have done EVs very well for a long time, and now with battery technology, we have the range. And so, if we want to fix our greenhouse gas emission problem, if you want to reduce your own personal carbon footprint by 50%, go out and buy an EV. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're talking about. What is an electric vehicle? I mean, it's all new technology, and we're fairly familiar with how gasoline cars work. Internal combustion engines have also been around for 175 years, and we're still driving around in them. And as you can see on the left there, gasoline engines are only about 25 to 30% efficient at turning gasoline into forward motion. Uh, if you take a look at an EV or an electric motor, it's about 85% efficient at turning electrons into forward motion. So right off the bat, you have a huge gain in what an EV can do versus a gas engine. The other piece of it, of course, is that EVs include a tremendous amount, or sorry, gas engines include a tremendous amount of parts. When you think about the service that goes into a gasoline engine, transmission fluid, oil filters, air filters, exhaust systems, all kinds of drive shafts. It's a huge amount of stuff, up to 2,000 moving parts in a gasoline and an ICE, internal combustion engine, ICE vehicle. When you look at an EV, it is so simple. You have an electric motor. It's totally sealed. You never touch it. You have a battery. It's totally sealed. You never touch it. You have power electronics. They're totally sealed. You never touch them. And so when it comes to EV maintenance versus a gasoline engine, it is hugely different. There's hardly anything to do to an EV. So I own a 2018 Nissan Leaf. It has 110,000 kilometers on it. Here's what I've done to it in 7 years. Okay. I've replaced the cabin air filter once. I probably should do it again. It must be getting a little moldy. I've replaced the windshield wipers once. I should probably do it again. I've done 3 brake services where I haven't replaced anything, but I've taken it into the shop and they have cleaned and lubricated the brakes. That's a good thing to do on an EV. And that was like $200 a piece. That's it. That's all I've done in 7 years. I still have the original brakes and rotors on my car. It's due for rear pads. I'll probably do them myself. That's it. There's just not much to do to an EV in the first 5 to 6 years of its life. Now, it does have a cooling system. EVs have a cooling system. And so I should replace the coolant after 5 or 6 years to make sure that it's going to resist freezing. It also has a hydraulic brake system, and I should replace the hydraulic brake fluid, just like a gas car. And I should probably be doing that around now. But other than that, there's really not much to do to them. I love it when Nissan asked me to bring my car in for a battery inspection. And I get this picture in my head of the mechanic getting on a creeper and sliding underneath the car. And he looks up and he goes, "Yep, battery's still there, all good." And he gives me back a report that says, "Okay." And for that, I paid $85. Anyway, so as you can see, in an EV, far less service work to be done to them. Very simple. We call it the skateboard. You can see it on the right there. It looks like a roller skate or a skateboard where you have the wheels and the motors and power electronics and then the battery in the middle. All EVs pretty much have the battery in the floor now. It's that big flat piece in the middle there. And just another picture of the thing. And the cool thing is, if you want to make it an all-wheel drive vehicle, then you just put a motor in the back and you put a motor in the front. There is no transmission shaft that goes from a differential or a transfer case to make it an all-wheel drive that travels underneath the vehicle. And therefore, the transmission hump that you normally get in a gas car that's inside the vehicle that takes up space and gets under people's feet, that is gone. So pretty much all EVs have a completely flat floor, which is great for packaging. And so on top of this roller skate, you could put whatever kind of body you like. It could be a pickup truck, it could be an SUV, it could be a sedan, a coupe, whatever it is you want. But basically, this is what they look like underneath. So let's just go over a couple of quick terms for a second, because I'm sure you've heard these terms, but weren't quite clear as to what it was meaning. So HEV, hybrid electric vehicle, PHEV, plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, and finally BEV, battery electric vehicle. So what the heck is the difference between a hybrid and a plug-in hybrid? Because the plug-in hybrid is actually a vehicle that a lot of people are very interested in because they're not quite sure if they're ready to make the switch from a gas car and leap all the way over to a full electric vehicle. And so a plug-in hybrid is sort of appealing to them. So what's the difference between these two? Well, a hybrid, and the Toyota Prius as an example is one of the most famous ones. A hybrid vehicle does not plug in. It basically has a gasoline engine, an electric motor, and it has a small battery, a very small battery on board, and of course, a gas tank. And the idea, oh gosh, it's been 24 years, I guess now, or more, since Toyota and Honda introduced hybrid electric vehicles. The idea was to add an electric motor to a gas car so that the car would use the gas engine less and rely on the electric motor in certain circumstances so that it would get better fuel economy. And of course, they delivered on that promise, and they to this day do a very good job. But if you were to make the battery in a hybrid bigger, look at the battery in this plug-in hybrid. It's obviously much bigger than the one over here. And now this battery allows the electric motor to power the car not just a couple of feet in a parking lot like this electric one over here would, but to power it for 30, 40, 50, 70, 80 kilometers. Wouldn't that be awesome? And the way you charge that battery up in a plug-in hybrid is to plug it in. When you get home at the end of your day, you plug it into any wall socket, nothing special, and sometime in the middle of the night, that battery is fully charged. And then you have whatever the range of that battery was. If it's 50 kilometers, then you have a full 50 kilometers the next morning ready to do whatever you need to do. But if you need to go on a long, 1,000-kilometer trip, whatever, you just put gas in it like you did any other gas car, and it behaves just like a hybrid. So you get sort of the best of both worlds, but don't forget, you still have that gas engine to maintain on top of the electric. So it's not a complete switch away from gasoline, but it is a nice combination, especially if you only have one car in the family and you do a lot of road trips or you have family that's far away and you're just not comfortable enough in going to a full electric. But if you are willing to make the plunge, say you do have two cars at home, one could be gas and one could be full electric. And then if there was any reason why you needed to go on a long trip and you were leery of taking the battery car, then you have your gasoline car in reserve. It's a nice way to do it. And I guarantee you that after a few months, especially after a few trips, you will decide that, you know what, I really like the full electric car better. And you will actually fight over it as a family because it is such a nicer drive than a gas car. Anyway, those are the differences. And of course now in full battery electric vehicles, we have ranges as you can see down here, we have ranges anywhere from 300 kilometers up to 600 kilometers. The average most EVs out there now are 400 to 500 kilometers of range, no problem. Okay, I would like to say right up front that one of the best benefits of EVs, driving an EV, is they're fun. I mean, that's why we buy cars. We don't often, I mean, as much as we try to buy a car with our head, we end up buying it with our heart because it's a nice color or we like the interior or it appeals to us in some particular way. It's sporty, whatever. And I think you will find that when you drive an EV, you will be pleasantly surprised with how quiet they are, how well they accelerate, how smooth they are. There's no transmission. There are no gears. There is no noise. It's just press the accelerator and it just goes and it just keeps on accelerating until you get to the speed that you want it to get to. They're just super nice vehicles to drive. Very calming, actually. So that would be my first comment about benefits of an EV. But of course, there are many people out there who like to save some money. And so EVs do save you money. We say roughly around 1/6 the price of driving a gas car to drive an EV, about 1/6, 1/5 to 1/6. Depends on the price of gas where you live, because that's the biggest factor is not having to pay for gas and paying for electricity, which tends to be around 13 cents a kilowatt hour, somewhere in around that neighborhood. And so because you can refuel at home on that cheap electricity, it is super cheap to drive these vehicles. We already talked about the reduced maintenance costs. And so the total cost of operation, the TCO, is very, very low on an EV compared to a gas car. if you would like to try out a comparator for yourself, we have an excellent one on our website, pluganddrive.ca. Go into noodle around in there, and you will find a comparator where you can put three different vehicles up and compare them side by side. You tell the comparator, how long do I want to keep this car? What are gas prices around me? And it will do the math for you and spreadsheet it and actually do some graphs and stuff like that and show you just how cheap it is to run the EV versus even a PHEV or a full gasoline car. There's definitely savings to be had. Yes, they cost a little bit more up front, but very quickly, and as a matter of fact, the more you drive your EV, the faster it recovers that cost savings for you. We do reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We talked about that right off the top. Reduce your own personal carbon footprint by 50%, depending on the province you live in, by driving an EV. I mean, it's just a no-brainer when it comes to that. If we're going to switch off of fossil fuel, of course, we all love to drive and we don't want to go back in time. We don't want to drive something that is worse than what we already have. And I would argue that driving an EV is way better. When you ask an EV owner today, would they go back to a gas car? 95% or better say, no way. Wouldn't you like to be one of them? And I guess the ultimate convenience is, of course, the ability to refuel at home. Nobody really likes going to a gas station when it's minus 25 out and getting, covered in smelly gas. I mean, people say to me, well, how long does it take you to charge your EV, Rod? Well, I don't know. I come home, I go click. 5 seconds later, I'm in the house. Sometime in the night, my car is fully charged 100% if that's what I want. And I start every day with a full battery. And so that convenience is wonderful. Yes, and that website that I mentioned on our pages there you go. That's where you can do the comparator. And pretty much if you're willing to put into that comparator apples to apples, so don't pick a cheapo gas car. One thing about EVs is they tend to be loaded up quite nicely with a lot of equipment. And when you look at gas cars, you can buy them stripped out pretty well, which gets the cost way down. So if you're going to compare apples to apples, make sure that the trim level of the gas car you're comparing is right up there with the trim level of the EV that you're comparing it to. And then you will quickly find that over time, your EV is going to be cheaper to own and operate. All right, so EV charging is a hot topic right now in the world. Why is that? Because the connector that we have, or connectors that we have been using in the past, and there were several, have now, it has now been decided that here in North America, we are going to adopt for all EVs the North American charging connector, which is known as NACS, or which is basically it's the Tesla connector, the Tesla plug. There was a bunch of different reasons why this happened. The biggest one, of course, is the Tesla supercharger network out there in North America is the best charging network, pretty much bar none. And the other guys would hate me for saying that, but it's, as far as they always work. They're very reliable. They don't just put in one or two, they put in 8, 12, 16 of them at a time. Here in Canmore, we have 6, 10. We have like 3 different Tesla superchargers and about 16 of them, if you can, 16 plugs. It's amazing. So, when you're traveling, if you show up and there's only one connector there and somebody's already on it, that's a pain in the butt. But if you're traveling and using the supercharger network, there's 12 of them and only 6 are occupied. There's one for you. So that's why we're switching over to the Tesla connector. It's sort of like, USB and the Apple port, the fight over that. Now we've all decided it's going to be USB, USB-C. So we've made that transition now, and the charging companies that are out there, as they install new EV chargers, they will probably have both the Tesla connector on there, and they will have this one that you see in the bottom left corner, the CCS connector, which was for all non-Teslas. And that's what we've been using for the last 10 years or so. But it's ultimately going to go away. And so the manufacturers, from not just Tesla, but everybody, is going to install the Tesla port into their EV when they make it, whether it's GM, Ford, or whoever the heck it is. And that transition is just happening now. So if you buy a car and it has the CCS that you see in the bottom left of the slide there, then you're going to need an adapter to take you over to the Tesla connector, which you see on the right-hand side of the slide. And if you buy a car that has the Tesla port on it, then you're going to need an adapter to go back to the chargers that are CCS. And these adapters aren't expensive. They're just a couple $100. In many cases, they're included with the cost of the car when you purchase it. The other connector that you see up here, the CHAdeMO, that's gone. That's my old Nissan Leaf. That was the Japanese standard from way, way back. And Leaf is not doing it anymore. Leaf is actually doing Tesla. And yeah, it's done. Any of the chargers that are out there already, like if you wanted to buy a used Nissan Leaf and it came with the CHAdeMO fast charging connector, then there are still chargers out there. And as long as they stay operating and continue to work, they will probably remain out there. They won't get replaced. But as soon as they start to die, they probably won't repair them and put them back. So eventually CHAdeMO will be gone. It might take a couple years yet. And then for level 1 and 2 charging, the J1772 top left, that is also going to be gone because the Tesla connector can do level 1, 2, and 3, all in that nice, neat, tidy socket plug that you see on the right-hand side of the screen there. And so just to explain a little bit about what I mean by level 1, 2, and 3. So level 1 is 120 volts. This is a socket, like you can see on the right side at the top here. It looks like any regular outlet. It can be found in your driveway or your garage. The cord set that comes with your vehicle will plug into one of these sockets and will give you about 7 to 8 kilometers of range per hour when you're plugged in. For some people, that is adequate. If all you need is 60, 70 kilometers to recover overnight, then you can do that by plugging into level 1. Don't have to buy anything else. Just take the cord set that comes with the car and plug it in. But most people will go to level 2, and this is 240 volts. This is like your dryer or your stove. That's kind of power. And it gives you 35 to 40 kilometers of range per hour and will mostly recover an EV's battery overnight. Even if you came home dead empty, you would have a full charge by morning. And you can see an example of a level 2 charger in the center of the screen here, this charge point unit. And these cost anywhere from $200 or $300 up to $700 or $800. And what I should probably mention, maybe I'll do it here, is a brand new program. As we know, we have the $5,000 incentive from the federal EVIP program. Has just been reinstated like literally 3 days ago. And part of that EV program from the federal government is also money for chargers. And so there are a couple of organizations out there who will install a brand new level 2 charger in your home, installation included, as long as it's not too complicated, and not only give you the charger for free, but then pay you 2 or 3 cents a kilowatt hour every time you charge your car. So this is a very cool program. It's brand new. Plug and Drive is partnered up with one of the providers of that program. Um, and there are two that there's three actually, but I can't remember the third one off the top of my head, but you can Google it. And it's a wonderful program because it gives you a free charger in your home and pays you to use the thing, which is amazing, unheard of before. So one of them is from United Technologies. They're a Richmond Hill, Ontario company. If you look up United Technologies, EV charging, you'll find that on their website. And the other one is escaped my mind just at the moment, and I will come back to it in a second. Okay, so level 1 and 2. What is level 3? Well, I don't want to wait around hours to charge my car when I'm on a road trip. I want that car to charge in minutes. And so level 3, also called direct current, DC fast charging, charges your car in minutes. You can see in this particular picture this flow unit that's beside this Golf, and it looks like a gas pump. It's huge. It's a great big thing, and it has these big wires hanging off it that actually look like hoses from a gas pump, but they're not, they're wires. And so these boxes take the AC current on the grid, turn it into DC, and feed it into your car at a tremendous rate. And as you can see, 10 to 80% state of charge, SOC, in anywhere, depends on the car, it depends on the chargers, anywhere from 18 to 60 minutes. But most of them are around 30, 35 minutes. Um, and of course, for that privilege of charging so quickly, you will pay the most expensive rate for power out there versus charging up at home, as an example, between 50 to 85 cents a kilowatt hour. I know it says 65, but it can go even as high as 85 cents. But you're paying for the speed, essentially. It's almost like buying super gas. You pay, another 50 cents a liter for super duper, right? So those are the three different ways of charging a vehicle, both at home and when you're on the road. And how do you find those chargers? Well, up until most recently, we used apps, PlugShare, ChargeHub, a better route planner. They're free downloads onto your phone or your tablet. And they basically show you where all the chargers are. Not only do they show you where they are, but when you click on one, it gives you the address. It gives you the amenities that are nearby. It tells you the very cool thing is people can check in after they've used the charger and say, yes, I had a good charge here. It worked great for me. And so why do you care about their charging experience? Well, if it's the only charger in the middle of nowhere, it's sort of nice to know that when you get there, there's a good chance it's working. And so the way the crowdsourcing that goes on in these apps is very, very handy. So that when you're planning a road trip, you can take a look at various chargers. It's, recently, as an example, we've had vandalism happening at chargers, and chargers have had their cords cut clean off so that people could sell the copper in them. Crazy, I know, but it was happening. And so wouldn't it be nice to know before you got there if the charger was working and was going to work for you? And so these apps help you to do those things. However, more recently, the onboard telematic systems that are built right into the cars are doing a very, very good job of that. There's one in particular that I'm a big fan of, and it's called Google Automotive. It is not Android Auto. Android Auto and Apple CarPlay simply mirror your phone onto a screen on the dash of your car, which is very helpful and very useful. But your phone doesn't know what's the temperature of your battery? What's the state of charge of your battery? What has been your consumption so far? Are you driving very thriftily, or are you stomping it and burning through your battery, et cetera, et cetera? So Google Automotive now is an actual built-in software into the car. It's probably 8 or 9 different manufacturers, including GM, Volvo, Polestar, and others who are using this software. It is brilliant. It is a game changer. And if you buy a car with that on board, your range anxiety is gone, because you now can do what every Tesla has been able to do for 10 years. Tesla makes the car and they make the charger, right? The superchargers. So you didn't need to know where the chargers were. You just put your destination into the navigation system of the car, and the car figured out your trip and where you were going to stop and how long you will be there and how much energy you were going to get. It was brilliant. And that was Tesla's huge advantage. Along comes Google Automotive, and now in about 8 different brands, you can do that too. And it works. I've used it numerous times going back and forth through BC from Vancouver to Calgary, etc., in a variety of different vehicles with it on board, and it is excellent. So I just throw that out there. The various, just like we have Chevron and Petrocan and Shell and for our fossil fuel distribution networks, we also have EV charging networks. And some of them actually do happen to be the fossil fuel guys. As you can see, Shell and Petrocan are in there. But many of these required a multitude of apps on your phone to initiate them so that you could plug in and charge your car. Well, where we're going right now with all of the charging infrastructure is what's called plug and charge. So basically, when you buy your new EV, you set the profile, your personal profile up in the car, including your credit card. And when you arrive at Electrify Canada, as an example, you plug in your car to Electrify Canada, and you don't need to tap a card or tap a credit card or open an app and activate the charger. The charger and the car talk to each other and agree that I know who you are, your credit card is good, start the charging session, and at the end, it bills your car credit card, right? And plug and charge has the ability now to make the EV charging experience better than a gas refueling experience. Because not only do you not have to sit there and pull the trigger and hold it while you refuel the car, but you don't have to even tap a credit card anymore. You just simply plug in and it does it. And of course, this is what Tesla has been able to do for the last 10 years. Another advantage to Tesla, which now you're going to be able to do at a Tesla station as well. All right, so how are we doing in this whole thing? I mean, are we winning in this whole war, EVs on gas cars? Because we've heard a lot of things in the news about when the EV incentive went away, the $7,500 in the States, the tax credit went away under the Trump administration. And of course, EV sales fell off a cliff. And then we followed suit up here in Canada, and $5,000 went away. And then the provinces rebates in Quebec and BC and et cetera, they all went away. And sales fell off a cliff, as you would expect, because a lot of people knew this was going to happen. So they bought their EVs before those things all went away. And then when they did go away, sales fell. But they are starting to recover. We have a ways to go, but the technology is standing on its own 2 feet. The manufacturers have been all in on EVs. They produce some tremendous EVs that work very, very, very well. Yes, you've heard about some cancellations, like Ford decided to stop production of its Ford F-150 Lightning pickup truck. That was sad, but I don't know. I think it was a mistake, but oh well. Um, and in other instances, you've heard of manufacturers backing off on production to a certain extent. You've also maybe heard about some battery plants that have been closing, or not closing, but or maybe people selling out of them, or they're not putting shovels in the ground to get them going as early as they thought. Yes, there is no doubt about the impact of what is happening south of the border right now. I mean, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but we know what the Trump administration just did to the EPA down in the States. This is setting back the States and North America. And I mean, we're their closest neighbor. It's setting us back huge when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions. And of course, it opens the door for the auto manufacturers to go, oh, well, I guess I can start producing my 7.8 liter V8 pickup trucks again, because like there's no repercussion to me for doing that. It's very sad. But anyway, I firmly believe that the EV technology is superior. People are realizing that, and I think there's enough of a flame now in the EV space that it will go on its own. Good news, of course, is the Carney government decided to reinstate the 5 grand. That's fantastic. They put money towards EV charging infrastructure as well. That's fantastic. And some of the battery plants and the manufacturers are coming around in Ontario. And then, of course, there's the whole news about Chinese EVs coming to Canada. That will be interesting. We'll see how that goes. So yeah, what's driving EV adoption in Canada? Obviously, the zero emission mandate is gone, but it's been replaced with incentives and charging infrastructure incentives. And the whole industry itself, we need to get our auto industry in Canada going. It's crucial for us in Canada to keep that happening. And so EVs are a fantastic way of moving forward on that. In the end, we hope that the current EV owners are going to spread the gospel and incentivize and encourage their neighbors to get them as well. That's, nothing works better than word of mouth. And so overall global EV sales, while North America has now become a laggard, the rest of the world is doing very, very well. I do want to address one particular topic. As I'm sure, as I'm sitting, as I woke up this morning, it was minus 27 here in Canmore. Will an EV work for me in the wintertime? And we also understand that yes, batteries aren't going to be quite as efficient in a cold temperature, just as gasoline-powered vehicles aren't as efficient in cold weather either. As we can see, gas cars will lose 25% of the range in the winter. We don't care so much because we have, gas stations in every corner. Now, as I mentioned, with that new software, the Google Automotive, it knows the outside temperature, it knows the temperature of your battery, all those good things, and it will compensate for all that. So that's another great plus for that particular automotive operating system. And yes, we can lose up to 11 to 39% of our range when it's very, very cold there. A few things that EV owners know to do to mitigate that, and that, of course, is preheating while we're at home. My Leaf is sitting in the garage next to me. I can start my Leaf in the garage and warm it up while it's plugged in, so that when I go out, the car is already warm. And so that means I'm not going to use as much battery to warm the car up when I go out into the cold weather. I'm going to use the heated seats and steering wheel because heating me directly is way more efficient than heating the whole entire cabin. Uh, and preconditioning the battery. Many EVs now can precondition, warm up the battery before you get to a charger, so that when you get there, the charger is much more effective at charging the battery, much quicker at charging the battery. And so one good news thing about EVs, they always start because there is no gas engine full of thick, gooey oil to turn over with a dead cold battery. EVs, all they have to do is power up their electronics, just like a laptop, and close the contactor on the big traction battery so that a big power will come to the electric motors. That is all done through a small 12-volt battery. And as long as that is charged up, you're good to go. So you'll always start. You can always have a nice warm EV ready for you before you get outside by just using the app on your phone. And yes, you should be aware that range will be decreased based on the temperature. And so plan for maybe 1 or 2 more charging stops, depends how long your road trip is going to be. But for normal driving around or commuting back and forth to work, most of the time it isn't going to impact you at all. And so I'm just quickly going to talk about a couple of things which are happening out there in the EV space. Something you may have heard of is bidirectional charging or vehicle to grid or vehicle to home. This is the ability of the EV to feed power back into your house. And so we talk about resilience in the, in climate with climate change, we're seeing increased storm activity and increased and more powerful weather systems, and it knocks out our power, knocks down trees, knocks down power lines. And so if you had a way to keep the power going in your home, why not use that great big battery that's sitting in your EV, that's sitting in your driveway or garage? And so now EV manufacturers are making their vehicles capable of giving that power back to the house. The software is built into the cars. In some cases, you can buy the charger, which is as simple as plugging in, and it will allow that bidirectional transfer of power from the vehicle to the house. Or you may have to install a little extra load distribution box, that kind of stuff, to do that. But it is very, very possible now. The other, I'm going to go straight to the bottom, and that is battery technology. It's always marching on, and now we've gone from the lithium manganese batteries. We're now gone. We've moved along to lithium iron phosphate. Why do we care? The lithium iron phosphate batteries aren't as susceptible to the cold and don't care as much about being discharged right down to empty and filling them all the way back up to full and sitting at full. They don't mind that as much as the other lithium ion batteries of the past. So many manufacturers are switching over to lithium iron phosphate. We've also now heard of solid state batteries, and these have been coming for a long time. And basically, the goop, the liquid that's inside a battery is being replaced with a solid material. That means they're more energy dense, they're more resistant to overheating. You can charge and discharge them many, many more times than a traditional lithium ion battery. And they also have much more, will provide the vehicle with much more range. So where we're at 400 or 500 kilometers now, they'll be double that, 1,000 kilometers. And so those batteries, which have been always coming, are now just about here. So keep your eye open for that kind of stuff. So that's a really fast and quick deep dive into the EV space. And so I would just like to throw out there, please use pluganddrive.ca as a resource. Lots of great information on our web pages. Please come out and see us at our events. So go to our events page and see where our events are. And I hope we will see you out there to take you out for a test drive. And if you have any questions about EVs, you can always email us at contact@pluganddrive.ca. And Lori, of course, knows how to get hold of me. I'd be happy to answer you directly if you wanted to email me. And I think that leaves us not a lot of time for questions, but maybe I answered some of them through the presentation. Are there any out there, Lori, that I could address?
Actually, Ron, there is one question that's been repeated a couple of times. Here in Penticton, we're lucky we've got dealerships that some of which have a large fleet of EVs are selling. But for someone living in a smaller community with just Joe's Garage on Main Street, are mechanics these days, if you have a large auto center that's not attached to a sales center, can you count on a standard garage having EV expertise just for doing normal maintenance? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, it's still a little bit early days. I did mention that relationship with the Napa folks. And Napa is and the person who presented this question, I don't know if there's a Napa in your town or a Napa Auto Pro repair center in your town. But if there is, there's a good chance that there'll be a next drive and we'll be able to service EVs. But the reality is they don't need a lot on the high voltage side. They don't need a lot of service. There's not much to do to them. They will need some brakes. They will need tires. And those things can be done by any garage. There's no mystery to the brakes on an EV. They're just brakes or the tires or the suspension components. They're just suspension components. There's nothing different about them. So a lot of the car things that are on an EV aren't terribly special. And any auto repair facility can probably address that. But for the high voltage stuff, yes, that requires special tools, equipment, and training.
Okay, thank you very much. I think there were a lot of EV experts that were helping to answer questions as we went along the way in the chat. So I think everything more or less has been answered, but we'll also maybe check through the notes, and when we send out the video, see if there's any unanswered questions. Thank you very much, not only for your talk tonight, but to introduce us to Plug and Drive as a resource for us as we have questions or as people are doing research on their own. So that's super. So thank you very much, Ron. And I'm going to just pass things over to Sue now to say a few more words about things.
Thanks so much, Ron. That was wonderful. I learned a ton. I'll be quite quick because we're a bit over time, but we just wanted to mention a few events that we have coming up with First Things First Okanagan. Our next Views and Tales Club meeting has been rescheduled to Tuesday, March the 4th. It got pushed back a week. As always, it will be held at the Oasis Church in Penticton from 7 till 8:30. And this month we'll be discussing a book by Kate Marvel called Human Nature: 9 Ways to Feel About Our Changing Planet. You can check out our website for more information about this and to sign up. You can also check out our website for our next deep dive, which will be March 19th. We have speakers for that from Sacred Earth, which is an Indigenous women-led group that installs solar in Native communities to get them off diesel. On the March 7th, 8th weekend, First Things First, we'll have a booth at the Penticton Home Show. So drop by if you're there. And we're also still looking for a few volunteers to help us out that weekend. So if you're interested, just send us an email. You'll be spending a few hours handing out material and chatting with people, and it's always interesting. And last of all, we have a World Water Week coming up also in March. And as we know, water is a critical resource, and managing it is becoming increasingly important as we experience more and more droughts and water quality challenges. So between March 14th until the 31st, there will be events up and down the Okanagan Valley, celebrating water and learning about local issues and solutions. Lori will include a link to the World Water Week website in the follow-up email that you'll get tomorrow. So we encourage you to check out that to see what's happening there. And with all the other events, you can look at our website or sign up for our newsletter, which will be coming out next time in early March. And I think that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Sue. Maybe Ron or Lori, if you could take off the Plug and Drive illustration there, we can see the whole gallery of people, and Ron too. So thanks again, Ron. There is one question. I think we should say we'll let people go, but for people that were asking a question about the danger, the battery fire discussion, maybe you can talk a little bit about that for those that want to stay, that are interested, for another 5 minutes, and let everybody else say goodnight if they wish to. But a number of people asked about the question of are there more fires than gas vehicles, which is one of the negative things that have come up in the past couple of years. So we'll say
Short
goodnight
answer.
for those that want to run away, and for those that want to stay a bit. Ron, do you want to address that?
The short answer to that question is no. uh, it's uncanny how many people die in a gasoline fire, auto gasoline fire a year. I believe the number is somewhere around 1,600 people in the US die in a gasoline fire. I mean, it's just not news anymore on the gasoline side because it just happens so often. On the EV side, Nobody, nobody has died in an EV fire. Like it's uncanny how we pay so much attention to the fact that EVs are going to catch fire and burn the place down. There is no doubt energy in a battery, is it's huge energy in there. And if for some particular reason the battery is compromised, punctured, a piece of metal goes through it on the road, whatever, the energy wants to go out that hole as fast as possible. And of course, it starts a fire. And it runs away and it's extremely difficult to put out. Um, and so, that of course makes the news a lot. Whenever a Tesla, has a battery fire, if whenever it does happen, of course it makes the news because it's a Tesla, you know. But the reality is the incidence of batteries catching fires is extremely low compared to what happens in the gasoline side of things. It's just not news on the gas side anymore. That's all.
Great. Thank you very much for that again. And uh, thanks for the organization that you represent and all that it does for Canadians. And now we know we can visit that website too. So, and thanks for showing up tonight for tonight's evening, everyone.
Yes,
And
thank you.
look for
just-
that. Oh, go ahead.
I just
Go
have
ahead.
one thing. I told people in the chat that I will gather up their questions and maybe send them to you, Ron, and perhaps you could address them and I can forward them on to people because there were some things that didn't get addressed because of time. But and I'm sorry that you're not feeling well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and I'd be happy to do that. Fire the questions, and I'll write a response to them and put some links in there to back them up.
Great.
Wonderful.
All right. Good night, all.
Thanks for having me on,
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Yeah.
Have a good night.